I've seen someone come to on my face and said something in internet, a lot of going on.
Sean Strickland this week said that he's the only guy out there to beat you.
He always talks on my show.
But you guys trained together and you choked him out a few times, right?
We did spar a lot before, but that's why he's so mad.
This guy choked him out as well.
Yeah, take him down and submit him. Rear naked choke.
Now Sean's gonna talk about bad things as well, so we'll see.
Can Sean defend Khamzat to the point that he doesn't get written out and taken down and controlled for 25 minutes? I don't know that. I don't know that. But I tell you one thing that I do know is that if that guy that showed up tonight shows up in that fight, it will be much more difficult a fight for the great Khamzat Chimaev. Why? Because even Israel Adesanya, at the peak of his power, struggled with that version of Sean Strickland. The Dricus du Plessis fight, it didn't seem like Sean was locked all the way in. He seemed a little messed up, and it showed. It showed his body language, his posture, his lack of confidence. It showed in his coach getting frustrated. There were a number of reasons why he just didn't look the same. But tonight he looked the same. He looked like the guy that became the world champion.
There was no plan B, and Strickland's cardio proved every bit as much as good as Fluffy's. And it is underrated. You don't see it as often how effective he was on the back foot. You see guys who are able to, like, typically either more power or the incredible counter strikers who are able to fight on the back foot, because once they get on the back foot, that's where they plant their feet and then land that counter shot. But Sean Strickland's not that guy, right? He's not the guy who's sitting back and trying to land a bomb. Off his back foot, he's completely controlling pace, completely controlling rhythm, and not being the one advancing forward for most of the fight, although in most fights he is. It was a masterclass, man. It was a beautiful performance. If you're looking for, the guy who's a one-hitter quitter type finisher guy, that's not going to be Sean Strickland. But you see enough here to get the TKO when he's got, Fluffy dead to rights. I was extremely impressed.
Yeah, those first two rounds were close. They were competitive. I scored them both for Sean Strickland. But the fact that Anthony Hernandez was not only not getting any takedowns, but he only attempted the one, and it wasn't even really close. He wasn't able to get on the legs or anything. It felt like just a dominant performance from Sean Strickland, and then he goes out, lands that knee that starts the finishing sequence. I was blown away with it. I mean, Fluffy Hernandez had reached that territory over the 8-fight win streak where it was just like, is this guy gonna ever lose? Is he just gonna walk his way to the championship fight? I mean, it was truly a unprecedented run for him, winning 8 in a row, and then Sean Strickland just put the brakes on it like that was incredible. Let's go to the post fight. He obviously talks about Khamzat Chimaev. He calls him out in the post fight presser. Do you think he's next, or do you think it's still Nasruddin Imavov?
Nobody saw this coming, and that is exactly what makes this moment so dangerous for everyone at the top of the middleweight division right now. Sean Strickland just walked into Houston, dismantled an 8-fight win streak, and then pointed straight at the most feared man in the division like it was nothing.
See Houston, Sean Strickland ends the Fluffy Hernandez 8-fight win streak by finishing him in the third round. Surprising outcome, to say the least, for me. I did not expect him to finish Fluffy, and I did not expect Fluffy to get 0 takedowns and only attempt 1. What did you guys make of the fight? Ariel, we'll start with you.
All right. I thought it was an incredible win for Strickland. Obviously, he didn't look great in his last fight. I know that was a year ago. It felt like this was the moment where he had to step up. Fluffy had looked amazing as of late. Maybe you could say he hadn't fought, anyone of the level of a Sean Strickland, but I still thought that he was one of the best middleweights in the world. And I still think he's one of the best middleweights in the world. And it's kind of crazy that, we thought we were going to get maybe a Fluffy RDR title shot, and both of them just on the cusp of getting that title shot, they both lose in very surprising fashion. Obviously RDR losing, what was it, back in October, I think it was, against Brendan Allen. So a huge win for Sean Strickland, a setback for Fluffy. I still think he can get there. And now the UFC, I still think that they're going to go with Khamzat versus Nasruddin. I think the bigger fight is Sean versus Khamzat. And I think Sean is doing whatever he can to try to, steer the talk in his direction with the stuff that he was saying either before or after the fight. But I still think they'll go with Nasruddin, and that's the right move. But the more sellable fight, if you want to call it that, is Strickland versus Chimaev. So
That 8-fight run by Anthony Hernandez was not just impressive, it was the kind of streak that makes you start believing someone is untouchable, until tonight proved otherwise. Strickland shut down every single entry, nullified the grappling completely, and landed the knee that started the finishing sequence in the third round without breaking a sweat.
Right, that's the best he's looked since Israel Adesanya, and maybe even better than that, right? Because the anticipation, Israel Adesanya is not the type of guy who's going to walk you down. Israel Adesanya is the type of guy who's going to, strike with you a little bit, but mostly be a counter striker. And Sean Strickland's game works a little better against Israel Adesanya, right? If he can be the aggressive one, you can see the world where he's able to execute what he was able to do. Now, granted, that was championship fight and championship level, but I think of Fluffy and I think of Sean Strickland of that same caliber. So to me, this performance was as good as the Israel Adesanya performance or even better, from the perspective that my expectation was that I thought Fluffy was going to sell out more. I thought Fluffy was going to be even more aggressive than he was. Now, granted, he was pretty aggressive, and you have to credit Sean Strickland's defensiveness. His ability to evade attacks, his ability to stifle. The jab just being out there constantly is such a good tool to stop somebody in their tracks and stop them from getting off their offense. And so you have to credit him, but I did expect that Fluffy was going to basically just wade through the jabs instead of reacting to them and kind of allowing them to stop him and try to get a hold of Sean's legs, try to do something with him in the clinch against the cage. And Sean Strickland just did not let him. He absolutely had no thought for Fluffy being able to get entries into the positions that he's so successful in. The jab was there all night.
What separates tonight from every other Strickland fight is the version of Sean Strickland that showed up, because this was the champion version, the one that beat Israel Adesanya for the belt. The body language was locked in, the confidence was visible, the posture was right, and his coach was calm on the corner, which tells you everything you need to know about his mental state.
Nasruddin, but the bigger fight is Sean Strickland, as Ariel also alluded to, right? There's no doubt that there's an appetite for Sean Strickland. For one, I think the performance warrants it, right? I think the performance was good enough in a guy that Fluffy was probably going to be in title conversations after this fight if he won, that you could do it on performance alone. Now, I think Nasruddin's resume is more than enough to get him a title opportunity against Khamzat, but the bigger fight, the one that's going to sell more, the one that is going to have a more heated rivalry, is going to be Sean Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev. So if Nasruddin can't fight on Khamzat's timeline or the UFC's timeline, I guarantee that Sean Strickland will take that opportunity. I guarantee that he'll be ready. So it's really going to come down to, if Nasruddin is still ahead of him, which I imagine he is, I would expect he is, if he has any inkling of I'm not ready for what time frame they provide to me, he better rethink that, because I imagine Sean Strickland would take that opportunity no matter what shape, what condition, what health he's in. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I do imagine
Strickland is not a one-punch knockout artist, and you have to understand that before you judge how he fights, because his game is built on something far more suffocating than power. He controls the pace, kills the rhythm, smothers the jab before it ever lands, and forces his opponent to fight a fight they never trained for and never wanted to be in.
The bigger fight, sometimes getting it instead of, meritocracy, you still think it goes to Imavov over Strickland.
The biggest difference to me is Nasruddin's been beating top, he's an Armin, right? For me, if he gets passed up, it's something, not the performances. It's something completely outside, because he's not boring. He's coming in there and he's knocking guys out. He's beating top-level competition. You could do worse than giving Nasruddin Imavov a title shot. I think he's a game opponent. Sean Strickland doesn't have the recent resume that he has, right? That is just the reality. Sean Strickland has the other thing. He has the thing outside the cage. So, no, I don't think Nasruddin is the situation where you've got a Movsar Evloev, where you're I would rather do anything but give this guy a title shot, right? The UFC looks at Movsar Evloev and they're like, it doesn't matter. I'll take anybody. I don't think you're in that position with Nasruddin Imavov. I think he's done enough, and I think his performances have been fantastic. So I think it's one of those that you've got options. You've got a gift here. But as I said, I know if both those guys get a call, Sean Strickland will say yes no matter what. he could have his leg chopped off the day before, and he will say yes no matter what. I don't know if Nasruddin is of that same build, right? That's a you have to be a unique type of fighter to say, like, no matter what the circumstances are, I'm taking that fight. So
that relentless jab was present every single round tonight. And Hernandez, who usually overwhelms people with forward pressure, had absolutely zero answer for it the entire fight. Hernandez only attempted one takedown all night. It was not even remotely close to working, and that single stat tells you exactly how completely Strickland owned the range and distance. The first 2 rounds were competitive on the cards, but Strickland was winning them. And the fact that Hernandez could not adjust or find a plan B is a direct credit to how suffocating the defense was. When he landed that finishing knee and the sequence began, it was not a surprise anymore because the damage had been building invisibly the entire time, and Hernandez had nothing left. This performance was as good as the Adesanya win, and you could even argue it was better because expectations going into that fight were completely different from what the challenge looked like tonight. Adesanya is a counter-striker who gives Strickland room to be the aggressor, but Hernandez was supposed to wade through the jabs and drag him into dirty boxing, and he simply could not do it. Now Strickland walks out of Houston and calls out Khamzat Chimaev directly, and the silence coming back from Chimaev's camp is actually the loudest thing happening in the middleweight division right now. Chimaev has not responded publicly, and anyone who knows how that dynamic works understands that when Khamzat goes quiet after a call-out, he is paying very close attention to what just happened. The debate for the title shot now sits between Nasruddin Imavov and Strickland, and while Imavov absolutely deserves it on merit alone with his resume and finishing ability at the top level, the fight that sells is different. Strickland versus Chimaev is the grudge match. It is the bad blood. It is the rivalry that has roots in the gym and the cage and every inflammatory thing said publicly, and the UFC knows that better than anyone. The single most important factor in all of this is that Strickland will say yes to that fight under any circumstances, any timeline, any health situation, any notice, without a second of hesitation or negotiation. That unconditional readiness is worth more to the UFC than almost anything else when title timelines collapse. And if Imavov shows even one moment of uncertainty, Strickland will be on that plane before the call even ends.